Hi everyone and happy Thursday. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. If you live in New England like myself, then you probably have experienced a ton of snow. So hopefully you guys are staying warm, and if you had a snow day, congratulations. We had a remote kind of virtual work day today. So everyone was participating in school kind of as normal, but virtually from at least the comfort of our own homes, which was nice. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of kind of like a sneak peek of an activity that I'm currently working on for my students. So if you follow my page on Instagram here at School Psych Managee, then you probably have seen a lot of my recent posts and stories I've shared, some kind of like little videos I've made doing unboxings of some toys that I've recently purchased related to like outdoors, like camping or hiking type activities. So I've talked a lot about executive functioning and trying to build executive functioning skills with students. And lately, what I've been working a lot with multiple students from honestly from kindergarten through fifth grade, I've been working with my students on the strategy stop, think, plan, and do. Obviously, scaffolding it based on like student age and helping to explain it in different ways so that they can understand. But really, this is incorporating a lot of different things from what does it mean to be a whole body listener, have whole body control. So when you think about self regulation, not just like physically making sure your body's regulated, but emotional regulation as well. Do you have a calm body? Do we need to use a coping skill like taking a deep breath to regulate our body so that we are focused, centered, and thinking about what we're doing? Are we distracted by outside factors or thoughts that we have in our head? And how can we regroup and circle back to the present moment? So, kind of being mindful, I guess you could say taking like a mindful moment. So, with my students, I have a mix of in person students and virtual students or remote learners. In our district, we call them distant learners. So, I usually call them like my DL students. But I have a mix, so obviously working with students throughout the week here at my school, and then a few students who are at home and coming up with creative ways that I can make learning fun for them and do things aside from just reading a book all the time in our online lessons or just talking. And I'm really trying to focus on, like I said, executive functioning with my students because I find that just in general, that's an area that a lot of students need support in. And over the years, I've seen sometimes a disconnect between when the students transition from elementary school and they make the shift into middle school. Um, by no fault of our own, we often tend to overdo things for our students. And obviously, with the best intentions, we want to make sure they have everything they need. We want to make sure that they're prepared. So we kind of simplify a lot of things or do a lot of the more challenging things, like we'll have everything ready for the students to go right away, which kind of takes out the independence on their end of having to make sure that they're prepared and well planned, that they planned ahead for what do they need, how to start the activity. So one thing that I'm really trying to focus on with my students is getting them to take a little bit more ownership and be a little bit more independent, because I really, really, really want to help kind of make it a smoother transition from when they're in fifth grade to sixth grade, where it's expected that they're a lot more independent. There's, instead of having one teacher, they have multiple teachers. Obviously, all the teachers that they're going to have are not going to have the time to really kind of lay everything out for them from start to end, and they expect the students to be a little bit more independent and take a little bit more ownership over their learning and being prepared. So that's kind of a big reason why I feel like this year, unlike any other year, I've been really trying to stress executive functioning with my students. So with that, I mentioned before that I've been working with students on the stop, think, plan, do strategy, and we've been really scaffolding it. So in the beginning, we really broke it down. What does each step mean? We talked about it. We would come up with an activity, and whether it's online or in person, and I would explain each piece of the process. And okay, we're in this step right now. We're doing this step right now, and so on. So one thing I've been doing, especially with my DL students, is coming up with virtual lessons to help them with executive functioning. So if you have seen my recent posts, I've come up with a couple really cute activities, or at least I think they're cute, with a little gingerbread man named Lolly. And there's one where the students have to help him build a house for the winter. There's one where the students have to help him decorate his tree. Another one, the students have to help him make hot chocolate because he's cold. And I'm actually working on one more where the students are going to have to help him build a snowman. That was at the suggestion of one of my really cute students that I work with. He came up with that idea, so I cannot take credit for that. But I also wanted to incorporate executive functioning with my in-person students as well and give them fun activities aside from just on the computer and technology. So one thing I'm working with my students on is using those Melissa and Doug toy sets. They haven't seen them yet, the hiking ones, but I'm gonna set up a big culminating project, and at the end they're gonna have to themselves physically get all the materials organized, come up with a plan, and follow through steps from the plan until they get to the end, which the end is kind of creating a pretend campsite where they have to cook food, they have to work as a team. They're gonna have to make like s'mores and build a fire, so those kinds of things using the toys. But before that, a big piece of executive functioning is scaffolding for the students. So this digital resource, I'm gonna use this with my DL students, but I'm also going to use this digital resource with my in-person students. So together, as a team, I'll put this up on the smartboard, and or I'll have the students bring their Chromebooks and I'll share it with the students, and we'll all be on the document together. But we're going to go through this activity sort of slide by slide with my in-person students, likewise with my DL students. But the kind of caveat is the in-person students at the end will actually, physically experience going through all these steps using the Melissa and Doug toy sets that I purchased. So for them, it's going to be, that's part of the scaffolding, is now they're going to move into that independent piece where they're going to have to set up the campsite and gather their materials, physically. So that's kind of the one benefit of the in-person learners that unfortunately my DL students won't get to experience, but they'll at least get to experience this piece. So I wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit of what I'm working on. It's not completed, so this is not the final outcome, but I at least wanted to share with you just some ideas on how you can get creative. I was really kind of what sparked my interest in trying to be more creative in my counseling is a book called The Playful Classroom, which talks a lot about the power of play. And I apologize if you hear the cars outside, the plows cleaning the streets. But the book, The Playful Classroom, talks a lot about the power of play. And overall, it's the idea of we really need to incorporate more play into the classroom and into the school day, which is why I purchased those Melissa and Doug toy sets to try to build my students their engagement, but also because they're going to be more engaged, it's going to be more impactful, and it's going to sort of make a little bit more of an imprint on them if it was just me reading a story or talking to them. So for this activity, this big culminating project, I am including literacy. So I purchased, if you follow my Instagram page, then you'll have seen a book I posted about. It's called The Little Book of Camping by Zach Bush and Lori Friedman. And I'm going to start with my students by reading that book. So that's part of the scaffolding, is we're going to incorporate some literacy, read the book, and the book kind of gives a little breakdown of when you're getting ready to go camping, thinking of your materials, like what do you need. It's a really cute, really simple, easy read for students. So that's part one. Then part two is going to be using this digital resource. And I'm also making a sort of modified version of this in an actual, physical paper copy version. And I'm going to use that with my kindergarten students because it's more hands-on, and I feel like with the technology, the computer, that manipulating the slides, it might be a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to kind of recreate this in a simplified version for my younger students. So thinking of differentiating, based on student level, grades, and abilities. But going back to this activity, so this will be for my older students. We're going to do the Great Hiking Adventure, and what this looks like is we're gonna start by talking about having like a discussion. So talking about what is hiking, what do you need before you go on a hike, have you ever been hiking, and having them at least share some experiences. This is a great way to build social skills. So we're going to work on whole body listening, respecting each other's turns when we're talking, making connections. So kind of connecting if multiple students have been hiking. Where did you go? What was it like? What was your experience versus what was your experience? So a great way to build social skills, build listening skills, communication skills, asking questions, making connections, kind of emotional reciprocity or conversational reciprocity. So that's a really great way of how you can easily build that in. Next, we're going to do a little bit of organizing. So students are going to have to sequence some tasks or like cards. So the task will be on the next slide. This kind of just breaks it down, kind of giving them the explanation of what they're going to be doing. But then on this side, they're going to have, it's going to look like this, but the one difference is it'll have some visuals on it as well. So this is the template. So when you're making the template, you have to kind of create different slides, and then when you put it all together for the final product, then you what I do is I download it as an image. I upload the image to my blank slide, and then the movable pieces I just copy and paste into the slide. So that probably sounds really confusing, but for this one, this is the slide that the students are going to see. So it's the sequencing time. Click on the cards and move each card into the correct order. So then on here, I have these 4 different cards. So these are the steps of our executive functioning strategy: stop, think, plan, and do. But what I'm going to do is I'll copy the cards, and then on this slide, I'm going to have the cards pasted. So I might just put them in the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the cards in like a random order. So they're just going to be all randomly placed in a stack. And then this one will be the one I put on top, only because this was the card that this is the card that I used here. So what the students are going to do is they're not going to see this slide, but they are going to see this slide. So for this one, the students are going to have to organize it. So without me telling them, they're going to have to figure out, where do the cards go? So they hopefully should know that step 1 is stop, step 2 is think, step 3 would be plan, and then step 4 would be do. So that's the idea behind that. And then I'll just undo it so I don't kind of confuse myself. So they won't see this slide. Then the next part will be this one: stop, think, plan, do strategy. So this is kind of just the intro card. Next, they're going to have a slide that looks like this. So it'll say step 1, stop. And this is part of the scaffolding, because for my students at least, we've really already have been working on the strategy, and it's been several weeks now that they've had exposure to the visual strip I created in each of my Lolly digital resources. I include a picture of the strip, and then we break down each step. So there's a slide for each step that we talk through and explain, and I'm hoping that by now they'll have internalized it a little bit more. So now this is going to sort of serve 2 purposes, I guess you could say. This is going to serve a little bit of building their independence, but now I'm not going to be the one doing as much of the talking and showing. Now they're going to be the ones having to show me. So this is almost like an assessment. This is a good way to progress monitor. What do students understand related to the strategy? Do they need help? Are they understanding the sequence of how the order works? So for this one, the students are going to have to click the little circle. So if you see it says circle your answer, move the blue circle to the letter that shows your answer. So the students on here, when it's the final version, the only piece that the students will be able to manipulate is the circle. Right now I can, click all the pieces and I could alter it and change it, but on the final version, again, this is the template. So the final version, they will only have access to click this. They won't be able to manipulate any of the other pieces. But anyway, so what they're going to do is they're going to click it, and then they're going to have to move the circle to whatever their answer is. So step 1, what do we need to do when we are at step 1? So step 1 means that we should focus on what we're doing. So step 1, I always tell my students, stop and focus. Stop and make sure that your brain, your body is ready to go, ready to learn. So the right answer would be stop and focus on what we're doing. And then as you can see, just move that back before I forget, as you see, then there's different slides related to each of the steps. So the students, if they're on this one, step 3, plan. What do we need to do when we're at step 3? Well, for step 3, is it ask yourself if you're focused? No, that would be step 1. Is it create a list of the steps we need to follow and find our materials before we begin? Or is it think of what the directions say? So hopefully they'll know that planning means organizing yourself, making a checklist if you need to, making sure to hunt and gather all of your materials before you begin the task so that you're ready. So that's really how I describe step 3 for my students. And then finally step 4 is the do step, and then students will need to click the circle, and obviously the answer is do means begin the activity, start the activity. So now I haven't finished the rest of this, but this is as far as I got right now. So basically now I'm going to create a kind of pretend story, a pretend scenario for my students using some different characters. So I'll set up like the next slide will be sort of like a letter maybe, or it's going to be something where one friend invites the other one to go hiking, and they're going to be at their house, and then they're going to have to hunt and gather the material. So I'm going to include a slide that it's like a house, and the slide's going to have different materials from like the camping materials that you would need, like a backpack, binoculars, a water bottle or canteen, different things. And then it'll have extra things too, like toys, things that you wouldn't obviously bring or need for your camping adventure. So the students are going to have to organize it and move the items for camping into like a certain spot on the screen. Then after that, it's going to be like they need to take food with them for camping. So we're going to have to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'll have different pictures of like the steps for making a PB&J, and they'll have to organize the pictures in the sequence that would make sense for when you're creating a sandwich, so like start to finish. And then I'll create like a campsite where they have to maybe like move the pictures around to set up the campsite and have everything organized and ready to go. And then at the end, we'll kind of do a review of the stop, think, plan, and do strategy. And I might make that not where they have to manipulate the slide, but more just a conversation. So I might call it like a discussion round or something, and have the students state back to me what they had to do at each step. And then I might just include, kind of depending on if I have time and how I feel by the time I finish this whole activity. It does take a little while to prep and plan everything, but at the end I might include some kind of just miscellaneous slides that tie in academics and maybe things where they have to show greater, less than, add, subtract, kind of basic simple things. Um, and then just some like interactive slides where they can like type in the answer or move the pieces, slide the pictures to show the answers. So I'm not sure yet how that's going to look. I haven't kind of gotten to that stage yet, but I just wanted to share with you guys what I have so far, explain a little bit of what my plan is for this. So again, my in-person students will scaffold it even more, because then after this activity, future lessons will be where they have to use the toys they got and kind of themselves plan, hike, build their social skills, their whole body listening skills, come up with ways to show collaboration, so teamwork and building team skills, assigning roles for each other, who's going to be in charge of what, having a checklist, checking off our checklist. So that's my big plan. We'll see. Hopefully it comes to fruition, but I wanted to at least give you guys an idea and show you that there are ways that you can build your students' skills in the classroom, whether it's counseling or the classroom, but there's ways to really make it fun and exciting, and my students are always super engaged when we use these types of activities, so I'm excited to see where this one goes, and be on the lookout for more. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that little share, and I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone.